It's a real pleasure to be with everybody today. I've been excited to do this event because I always like talking about data modeling, all of the aspects. I want to begin today's conversation by going back many years. Many years ago, I was in Denver, Colorado, and Dan Lindstedt and I, who've been friends for a long, long time, Dan Lindstedt and I started talking about Data Vault many years ago. And so it's been amazing for me to see how far Data Vault has come. And I congratulate everybody, and I think it's the right way to go. And I fully endorse Data Vault just in case anybody is interested. Along that line, many years ago, about the time that I had the conversation with Dan Lindstedt, I started to sit down and kind of ask myself a question. And I said, all this data warehouse stuff is very interesting, but the truth of the matter is that data warehouse information only applies really to structured data. But when you look into the corporation, what do you find? You find that the vast majority of the information in the corporation is not structured data at all. It's in the form of textual data. There's emails, there's memos, there's the internet, there's call centers, there's customer feedback. There's all kinds of information in the world of the corporation that doesn't have anything to do with structured data. And I thought, this is really strange because I thought maybe it's because there's no valuable information in textual data in the corporation. And so I began to look into it, and what I found was that there is a wealth of very important information that's wrapped up in the form of text,
Sorry,
and nobody is looking at it.
sorry,
And
Bill.
and
Sorry to
and
interrupt you, Bill. Do you have a slides? You sharing slides?
oh, no, I'm going to be talking.
Okay, no problem. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I didn't want to do slides on this presentation. I wanted to make it more dynamic. So anyway, I started to ask myself the question, what about text? Is there value in text? And I'm going to tell you right now, there's a tremendous amount of value, business value, that's wrapped up in the form of text that nobody is looking at. Let me give you just some of the things you can do with text. One of them is understanding what's called the voice of your customer. What are people saying about your corporation and your organization and your corporation's product? Uh, and listening to the voice of your customer is one of the most, if not the most valuable thing, one of the most valuable things you can be doing and ought to be doing in your corporation. Another place where there's tremendous value wrapped up in text is in fact called medical records. That if you look at what a doctor and a patient go through, they go through the whole ceremony of diagnosing the patient's problems, and all of that information is wrapped up in the form of text. What if we could take that information and put it into a database? Let me give you just one glimpse at the value of taking medical records and putting it into a database. Uh, if you look at the diseases that afflict mankind, if you look at heart disease, diabetes, COVID, and the many conditions that affect people around the world, what you find is that in order to understand the disease, you can't look at just one patient. You've got to look at many, many patients. You've got to look at 1 million patients to start to get an understanding of how to confront and take care of the disease. But as long as your doctor's records are in the form of text, you can't do that. You've got to convert your doctor's notes into the form of a database. And so, and I could go on and on. There, I'll tell you one other place that comes to mind: corporate contracts. Corporate contracts, or I've never seen a corporate contract that wasn't in the form of text. And so, if you go to an executive in the corporation and say, "Man, sir, do you know what's in your corporate contracts?" The answer is your executive will say, "No, we don't know what's in our corporate contracts." And then you say, "Why don't you know what's in your corporate contracts?" "Well, there are too many of them." "Well, they are, each one of them's different, and you just can't know what's in your corporate contracts." And then I say to them, "Don't you think there's valuable information in your corporate contracts? Deadlines, commitments, all kinds of really important information is wrapped up in a corporate contract." And yet, organizations around the world don't look at their corporate contracts. And why? Because their corporate contracts are in the form of text. If their corporate contracts were in the form of a database, then an executive could say, "Well, we looked through 10 million contracts and we found 13 of them where we're going to start to lose money, significant money, if we don't do some condition found in the contract." So whether it's contracts or whether it's call center information, voice of the customer, or whether it's medical records, there's a tremendous amount of value that's wrapped up in the form of text that isn't being looked at and used by the corporation today. Every now and then, I get somebody in a university environment to ask me, "Bill, I'm starting my career in technology. What should I focus on?" And I tell them, I tell them this. I said, "The world of text is unexplored. There's nobody looking there, and there's tremendous value that's there. That's where I would focus my attention, because it's the people in the corporation that are closest to the business value in the corporation that have the best careers. People that are stuck off in a back office, we have a need for people like that. But the truth of the matter is, in every corporation, the closer you are to the business of the corporation, the more attention you get, the more resources you get, and the better career you get to have. So that's a little preface of information on the journey that I've been embarking on. And then I sat down and asked myself the question: "Gee, there's all of this text in the corporation. Nobody's using it. Why? Why aren't people using text in the corporation?" And the first, I said, "Well, what does the world know about processing text today?" And it's kind of interesting. They said, "Oh, Bill, we've got this thing called NLP, natural language processing, and that manages text." Now, I want to talk a little bit about NLP. What is NLP? NLP has been around a long time. I remember studying NLP when I was in college. And believe me, I was in college before most of you were probably born. So NLP is not new. What is NLP? NLP is a method or an approach to studying language. If you want to study language, NLP works quite well. Where did NLP come from? NLP came from the academic university environment. And if you're interested in the topic, you can read a whole lot about NLP. So when I started my journey, which was around the year 2000, I've been doing this for almost a quarter century. When I started my career in 2000, the first thing we did was have an in-depth look at NLP. And here's what we found looking at NLP. NLP is good for studying language, but it is not a commercially viable product. And the people that try to turn it into a commercially viable product don't come up with very good results, if they come up with results at all. It's like playing Beethoven's Fifth Symphony on a rap station on the radio. It just is going to not fit. And so we made a long effort to try to take NLP and turn it into a commercial product, but we were unsuccessful. So then we started, and you might ask, gee, Bill, why did it take you 20 years to get all of this done? Is because we had to do everything by trial and error. And believe me, we made a lot of errors along the way, but there was no roadmap. There was nothing for anybody to tell us, gee, Bill, if you're dealing with text, this is what you've got to do. And so we try one thing, we try another thing, we try something else, and every time we tried something, we either learned that it wasn't the right thing to do, or we learned a little bit and added it to our collection of things to do. Now, when you go into text, you find that text is a world unto itself. If you've been dealing with structured data all of your life, when you first go into text, you're going to be lost. Everybody, it happens to everybody. Certainly happened to me. Is what do you do? And so text and language is perhaps one of the more difficult subjects you'll ever encounter. And why is language and text so difficult? It turns out there's a lot of reasons why text and language is so difficult. And that in itself is a problem. There's not one reason. I oftentimes get asked, Bill, what's the magic algorithm that you discovered and use to manage text? And the answer is there is no algorithm. The last time we went through our technology, we found at least 67 different algorithms that have got to be taken into account if you're going to make sense of text. So if you're looking for any magic algorithm, I can assure you there is none. So I'll save you a lot of time by looking for it, because people in computers, they want to know, what's the magic formula? What's the secret algorithm? And the truth of the matter is there is no algorithm. There's 67 of them. And so, and we had to discover each algorithm on its own. Let me give you a couple of quick examples of what I mean by the complexity of text and the algorithms that have got to be discovered. Let's take something as simple as proximity analysis. It turns out that a lot of words have meaning by themselves, but have an entirely different meaning when paired with another word. In the United States, we have a football team known as the Dallas Cowboys. They're a team of football players that play in Dallas, Texas. So in the United States, when you say Dallas Cowboys, everybody immediately associates that with a football team, because everybody knows who the Dallas Cowboys are. On the other hand, if you say the word Dallas by itself, that means a city in Texas. And if you say a cowboy by itself, you think of a man riding a horse with a hat on and a rope. That's what you normally think of when you think of a cowboy. So the proximity of words has a great impact on the meaning of words. Let me give you some other examples. Let's take the word fire. What does the word fire mean? And I'm going to tell you right now, if all I give you is the word fire, you don't know what the word fire means. I have to give you the context of fire. So why? Because fire can mean that your house is burning down, a conflagration. That's one meaning of fire. Another meaning of fire is you take a gun out and pull the trigger. You have fired the gun. Another meaning is one morning you walk into your job and your boss says to you, "You're fired." That means you've lost your job. So if I say the word to you, fire, uh, in all honesty, you don't know what I mean. I can mean a lot of different things that are very, very different things. And in order for you to understand the meaning of fire, you've also got to understand context. That text without context means nothing. Another example I use: you ask me a question, and I say the answer is seven, and you say seven. Seven what? And it could be seven seas, seven continents, 7 days of the week, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Seven by itself really doesn't tell you anything. You've got to understand context. So one of the many complexities of dealing with text is you've got to understand both text and context. Now, when it comes to context, people in a structured environment have it. You've got to have context in the structured environment. Except that in the structured environment, context comes with the data. When you, as a designer, sit down and design a record for a database, when you say customer name, customer address, customer account number, customer telephone number, what you're doing is defining the context of the data that you're going to be working with. So you need context with structured data, but it comes very differently than it does in text. You see, there is text in context, but it is, when I say it's difficult, it's taken us 20 years to figure out how to understand and determine the context. And so it's kind of interesting. In hindsight, spending a better part of my professional life doing this, text at the end of the day is not all that difficult. What's difficult is context. Context is 90% of the battle, and you've got to have it. It's mandatory. There's no text without context is misleading, is useless, and it can even be dangerous. So that's a little bit about what you find when you first enter the doors of text and needing to find text. So if you're going to unlock all of this very valuable information, it's a different world that you're entering into. Now, I want to say a few words about generative AI. Well, okay. I want to continue my little story, then we'll get back to generative AI. So, my group of people that I work with, very smart, good group of people. I love every one of them. The group of people that I work with set out on the journey to go after understanding text. And it didn't take us long to actually create the world of text, of the technology that's needed to manage text. And then something really interesting happened. I'm a technician, I've been a technician all my professional life. And I thought, boy, we've discovered how to go from text to a structured environment. Why do you have to go to a structured environment with text? Because the analytical tools of the world all demand a structured environment. And so if you're going to be doing a serious job of analyzing text, you're going to be going to a structured world. So we discovered that we could go from text to a structured world and do analytics. And we got all excited. So we started to go to the technicians of the world, the database designers, the data administrators, those kind of people. And to a one, nobody that we could find in the world of technicians had any comprehension of what we were doing or why it was valuable. And we thought this to be strange because we knew how valuable it was, but we could not break through to the technician to convey that particular message. So we then decided, well, we know that what we are doing is valuable. Let's stop talking to the technician and let's start talking to the business person. And quite frankly, it was rather easy to make the bridge between the technician and the business person. Now, I want to stop here and go quickly back into my own personal history. I don't know if you know this or not, but in the early days of data warehouse, for a variety of reasons, data warehouse was absolutely hated by technicians. That, again, for a variety of reasons, technicians did not understand, did not accept data warehousing at all. Thank goodness we in data warehousing found the marketing people of the world, because the marketing people of the world, boy, they really understood what a data warehouse could do for you. And if it hadn't have been for the marketing people of the world, data warehouse would have never gotten off the ground. And so we're seeing the same thing with text, that the technicians of the world did not understand the value of going into text and looking at it, but the business people do. Who are the business people that get needing to look at text? Well, marketing people do. This gives them a chance to go out to the internet and find out what people are saying about their company and their product on the internet. That's one thing that you get from it. Another thing, doctors and researchers in medicine, boy, do they get it. They know that they can't deal with the text they find in medical records. And so we found that over and over again, when it comes to talking to people about the value of text, it wasn't the technician that got it, it was the business person that got it. So that's a little bit about the early days of how text came to be. One of the things that you need in text is a form of data modeling that you're probably not familiar with. And that's something called an ontology or a taxonomy. Ontologies and taxonomies indeed are a form of data modeling, and they are absolutely as necessary in managing text as a data modeling is in managing the world of structured information. However, an ontology and a taxonomy don't look at all like the data model that you've been familiar with all your life. Again, I began the conversation by saying, when you get into the world of text, you're going to be very uncomfortable because there's a lot of things that are happening that need to happening that you've never experienced before. And again, it's a whole new world. So we have these data modeling things called taxonomies and ontologies. What in the world is a taxonomy? By the way, what's an ontology? At least the definition we use for an ontology is a collection of taxonomies. What is a taxonomy? A taxonomy is a linguistic descriptive of some topic. You can have an ontology about automobiles. You can have an ontology about sentiment. You can have ontologies about the countries of the world. You can have ontology or you can have taxonomies about these different topics. I misspoke. A sign of old age. I was saying the word ontology when I should have been saying taxonomy. My apologies. You can have a taxonomy about the oceans of the world. You can have a taxonomy about anything that you want. And what is a taxonomy? It's merely the descriptive language for for what describes that taxonomy. So, for example, if you were to take the trees of the world, you could have a pine tree, a pecan tree, an elm tree, an oak tree, a mesquite tree, and so forth and so on. If you talk about the cars of the world, you could have a Volkswagen, a Porsche, a Ferrari, a Ford, a Chrysler, a Honda. Those would all be forms of a taxonomy. So anyway, there is data modeling in the world of text, but again, it doesn't look like the same kind of data modeling that has ever occurred in the world of structured systems. So anyway, this is as you go into this, you find that in order to decipher text, you've got to have a whole set of tools that are necessary. And one of them being taxonomies and ontologies. That's the main one. There are some other ones that I don't have time to talk about today. There are some other constructs that you've got to have as well. So that's the journey of 20 years. What did we end up with? We ended up with something called textual ETL. What is textual ETL? Textual ETL is a process of converting text to a database. That's what textual ETL is. And for people in the data vault world, what we do is we read in text, and the text can come from anywhere, and we read in text and turn it into a database that now fits in the scheme of data vault. So when you look at output from textual ETL, what you really have is another source of data. The difference is it doesn't come to you like any other source of data, but nevertheless, by the time it arrives at your doorstep, it's a database, the likes of which you've been used to working with for many, many years. And so that's the result of a 20-year effort of being able to turn text into a standard database format with text, context, and some other things that you need. So that's how you go about unlocking the value in text. That's how it's done. And now I want to get back to Chat GPT and the other types of emphasis we're seeing on text today. On one hand, I greatly applaud whoever put OpenAI and Chat GPT into the world, because it's starting to open people's eyes up to the value of text. However, there's a problem. And the problem is, and we've done extensive searching on this, is trying to find genuine business value from Chat GPT and generative AI is, I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's very difficult. And that's a problem. For most people, Chat GPT is something we call a gee whiz technology. Gee, isn't this neat? But what do we do with it? How do we turn this into real value for the corporation? And now the jury's still out, because in all honesty, Chat GPT and generative AI are still new. And I'm sure that there is some business value there. But if you're looking for business value, you need to look to textual ETL. We have checked on many numerous resources, and generative AI does not do the same thing that textual ETL does. So if you want to go into text, and look at generative AI, and you may well discover some business value there. But and again, I'm sure it's there. We just probably haven't found it yet. On the other hand, if you want to unlock business value right now, you can do so. Now I'm looking at my time, making sure I have time to talk about this. I work with two companies, Forest Rim Technology and DataVox AI. These two companies are just about, we are, I hope, weeks away, because we've been working on this a long time, putting up on the DataVox AI website the ability for you to enter your data into the website and then get your database out. So you put your data in, you tell us who you are, and then you get your output. Now we do limit it to a number of documents, because it's free for a limited number of documents. I think we're going to do 20 or maybe 50 documents for you, and that's it. But if you want, when I say 20 or 50, we are talking with an insurance company right now, a large insurance company, and they have, what did they say? A petabyte worth of documents that they want us to translate. Well, we do charge for that. But if you want to see how Textual ETL works for free, and give us some of your documents, we will be happy to show you the database that comes out. And again, we are at the very latest, it's going to be September, but I believe we're only a few weeks away from having the ability for you for free to turn your documents into your textual documents into a database. Now, you can take those documents, put them right into Data Vault, and it fits like a hand in a glove. So that's the journey of text, Data Vault, data modeling, and how these things fit. We have time for questions. I'm more than happy to try to answer. One other thing is we do work in different languages. That's one of the challenges. There's two challenges I want to mention. There's one challenge is the challenge of language. Our basic language we work in is English, but we know that English is not something that everybody in the world uses. It's probably one of the world's most widely used languages, but it's not the only language. We also work in Arabic, we work in Portuguese, and we work in Spanish. So those are the languages that we know we work in. Now, we have had lots of questions about Mandarin, Kanji, and other languages. We know that we can work in those languages. However, from a standpoint of work on our part, it requires us some background work to change languages. So so the languages we currently work in are Arabic, English, Spanish, and Portuguese. So that's one challenge. Let me talk about the other challenge. And this is actually a big challenge. When you deal with text, you have to ask the most basic of questions, and that is, where does my text come from? And that's an interesting question, because text can come from everywhere. Text can come from voice. Text can come from call centers. Text can come from printed material. Text can come from the internet. Text can come from a database. Text can come from a spreadsheet. And so there are many, many different ways that text can get into your world. And each one of these ways has its own set of idiosyncrasies, its own set of considerations. Let me give you a couple of examples. Let's take voice transcription. There's very good voice transcription technology out there. You can take the recording of a voice and put it into the form of text. However, when you do so, you need to be aware of something, and that is there's no such thing as perfect transcription. That inevitably some words will become mangled. Now, a really good voice transcription will only mangle maybe 2% of the words. We did a test on some voice transcription technologies, and we found one, I'm not going to mention the name of the vendor, one voice transcription technology that only had a 50% accuracy rate. Well, I got news for you. You can't do anything meaningful if your accuracy rate of transcription is only 50%. But even in the best case, there's always some mangling of words. Let's take another case. Let's take the internet. You say, gee, Bill, there's a lot of text that I'm interested in on the internet. And you ought to be, because if you're in marketing, the people on the internet talk about you, your company, and your products. And that's very valuable feedback. And you ought to be looking at the internet. However, when you look at the internet, you find this. You find that every site is different, that companies use different technologies, different sites, and you've got to custom go into each technology in each site. And furthermore, these technologies and sites are constantly changing. So you've now incurred a very large maintenance issue when you start to go into the world of the internet. Spreadsheets. I don't know if you know this or not, but you cannot transcribe numerical data off of a spreadsheet. If you're going to transcribe textual data off of a spreadsheet, that's fine. But numerical data can be transcribed off a spreadsheet, but in terms of understanding its context, you can't understand the context of metadata, of data coming off of a spreadsheet. And I could go on and on, but each one of the sources of text has its own set of considerations, and it's the first obstacle you have to overcome. So that is, I think those are the major topics I want to cover. Again, we're talking about the last 20 years of Bill Inmon's life, 22 years of Bill Inmon's life of working with text, and that's what I've found. So